What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's your host, Dr. H, on the world's okayest physical therapist podcast. Today, we're taking a look at the next episode in the inflammation series. But first, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with everyone you know, as I am sharing my knowledge and my experience of how to navigate this labyrinthine, Byzantine thing that we call the American healthcare system to try and make us all more functionally literate when it comes to healthcare. And please consider checking out 10,000 and getting 15% off shorts, t-shirts, and pants. The link is in the description. Please consider joining the Patreon, as it helps immensely with the production value of this and the videos that I do on YouTube and Rumble. And without further ado, let us get into inflammation. Today we're talking about what happens after inflammation. It's going to be about how the body transitions from the initial response of the swelling and the immune response to true recovery and adaptation. It's going to be a little bit of a recap of what we've already done because we are getting closer to that last episode. This is a little bit of a recap episode, and then the addition of adaptation, because that's what hopefully we're going to talk about next time. It's going to focus on what's going on during the healing process, why timing matters so much in physical therapy, and how the choices that anyone makes, whether rest, load, movement, stress management, can all move you or keep you in inflammation and not let you move on to resilience. So first, the three phases of healing. There's the acute phase, the subacute phase, and the chronic phase. Basically, the acute phase lasts from 0 to 7 days, the subacute phase from 7 to 14 to 21 days, sometimes a little bit longer, and then the chronic phase, which is anywhere beyond that. Now, that's how I learned about it in schools. That's how, if you're having chronic inflammation, that's not good. If you're a subacute phase, it could be going either way. You could be improving or stalling. But that's how we learn to describe it in school. So if you're in the acute phase, again, you're within 0 to 7 days of injury. If you're in the subacute phase, you're in like 17 to 21 days, and then the chronic phase is anything over a month. Now, that's how they talk about it in the medical field. So if you come in and said, hey, I've had shoulder pain for 3 months, they're going to say, oh, it's chronic. So just so you're aware, that's some of the lingo. Now, how it's supposed to go, how your tissues are supposed to heal, is you're supposed to be in the inflammation phase from 0 to 7 days. Then you're supposed to enter into a phase called the proliferation phase, which is from 7 to 21 days. And then you're supposed to be in the remodeling phase, which is any time after that up into months until your tissues are finally back to normal. In the inflammation phase, that's the 0 to 7 days, you're looking at immune cells swarming the area, breaking down dead cells, making sure no bacteria are around, releasing cytokines, releasing interleukins, increasing the viscosity of the fluid. You're looking at redness and swelling, all those things. And the proliferation phase, that's where you're looking at the idea of building back up. So the demo crew has come through and blown everything up, and now you've got the construction crew coming in and laying down new collagen and trying to repair. You got the muscle cells proliferating and making more muscle cells, the skin cells making more skin cells, so on and so forth. In the remodeling phase, that's where you go in and you start loading. That's where the collagen begins to align along stress lines. That means the collagen's not just trying to pull everything together towards itself like a black hole. It's instead now learning over time, oh, I have to be strong in this direction, not this direction. I have to accept load over here to help complement the muscles, not over here where I would hinder them. That's where strength and elasticity return. And it's where the nervous system begins to refine tune itself because that excitability of the nerves has decreased and it's getting back to normal conditions. A good physical therapist is going to be knowing where you are in these phases by evaluating pain levels, swelling, mobility restrictions, and muscle tone, which is muscle tightness, in order to help determine where you are in that timeline and help you get back to what you want to do. Now, like we talked about a few episodes ago, viscosity is a pretty big issue because during the inflammation phase, that swelling around your ankle or your wrist or your knee, it's not just water. It's not just thin liquid. It's viscous. It's a thick cocktail of proteins, immune cells, cytokines, and other things. And this leads to an increased thickness, almost like honey. And that changes how the cells glide, or sorry, it changes how the cells communicate and how tissues glide and how muscles work, right? So on the first level, um, the increased thickness of the fluid decreases the ability of cells to receive oxygen and nutrition. It slows down the rate of diffusion, which slows down again how that nutrients and oxygen is going to reach those damaged cells. The next thing it's going to do, it's going to decrease fascial glide, and that means it's not going to let the body move the way that it did before. It's going to be more difficult, it's going to take more effort, and it's going to feel like pain because you have now, instead of water in this area lubricating the joint, lubricating the muscles, it's like honey. And it's going to have a lot of a sensation of pulling and of pressure, and it's going to make it feel stiff and sticky. And part of this increase in pressure, part of this increase in the cytokines, part of this increase or decrease in pH is going to make the nerves much more sensitive. Um, Nerves that only feel pressure are going to feel pressure all the time, and they're going to send the signal to the brain the entire time saying, I'm under pressure. Nerves that are supposed to be looking for pain are going to be much more easily excitable. The threshold of activation is going to be much lower, and they're going to be way more likely and way more quick to say, hey, I'm in pain when you go and you move the body. Because again, all of that pressure, all of the electrolytes, all of the cytokines, all of those things are making the nerves much more um, trigger happy to perceive pain, even if it isn't there. And then finally, of course, the muscles are going to be much more likely to shut down, especially if they are actually traumatized. The muscle is not going to want to further traumatize itself. So if it senses that if it's been damaged, it will shut itself down and it will inhibit any movement in order to prevent any future injury. So that's one of the ways that the fluid and viscosity can influence the function of the area. As the tissue begins to calm down, as the viscosity decreases and becomes much more fluid, that's when a physical therapist is going to go in and really try to introduce movement in a meaningful way. Because as the body literally becomes more fluid again, it's going to be easier for it to move. Trying to move it before this time, again, the brain's going to be getting all sorts of sensory feedback saying the muscle, the joint, it doesn't want to move the way that a physical therapist or a person wants it to move. It's going to resist it. It's going to take way more effort. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to fight a little bit on it. But as the body becomes more fluid, that movement will feel much more natural. Part of the goal of physical therapy, though, is to introduce movement as early as possible to try and preserve range of motion. So even if the joint is stiff and full of viscous swelling and stuff, don't be surprised if physical therapist tries to go in there and still move it at least a little bit, because one, they're going to try and clear out that viscosity, reintroduce fluid by movement, and they're also going to try and get the brain used to accepting that pattern of movement again, which by sheer number of repetitions, by having the body go through that movement, the physical therapist will likely be hoping to decondition the brain for looking for pain, instead recognizing this as the new normal. So moving into the next part of the podcast, how to get from moving to protection to repair. Or sorry, moving from protection to repair. Early in the healing process, the goal isn't to load the muscle like you normally would at the gym. It's instead to restore communication using isometrics and gentle motion, like I was just saying. The human body speaks the language of pressure. And so when you're going in and doing isometrics, which would be resisting pressure, right? Resisting a little bit of load, that's driving a conversation between the muscles and the brain. The brain is trying to figure out how many neurological or how many muscle units it has to fire using the nerves in order to accomplish a specific task and hold against a specific amount of force. This has several effects. One, it reactivates the neuromuscular signaling between the brain and the muscle, so it learns to trust the injured area again, and it learns how to utilize it again. And two, it provides the analgesic effect, meaning that the nervous system will be calmed down. It won't be as excitable, and it will instead begin to recognize the new normal. And again, like I said earlier, it will help stimulate blood flow without stressing the tissue. And this is going to mean that you have a higher rate of diffusion, more oxygen, more nutrients coming in, washing out that thick viscous fluid and getting more new fluid with oxygen and, again, electrolytes and all the things that the cells need to continue to heal. But like I said earlier, one of the big takeaways from that is that it helps drive communication. It helps the body sense that it can accept a little bit of load and that the muscle unit is able to respond to the brain reaching out and trying to get it to fire. This is why with physical therapy, after major surgery or injury, you will see a lot of the times they start with controlled, pain-free isometric contractions instead of focusing on strengthening, brute strengthening. No, it's about reestablishing the mind-muscle connection, getting blood flow into the area, helping the muscles and the brain realize that they can accept a little bit of load, and then provide that analgesic effect to calm the nerves down. Now, all of this sets the foundation for moving into adaptation, which is the real goal. Because inflammation begins the story, it's chapter 1, and the end of the book is adaptation. It happens after the tissue is remodeled, where loading becomes the medicine. Gradual mechanical stress is what's needed in order to help the new collagen align and restore its tensile strength in order to be an effective partner with the muscles. Eccentric and dynamic exercise in the final stages of adaptation are also what helps train the musculoskeletal system and the neurological system to tolerate load efficiently. So eccentric is going to be making the muscles lengthen while contracting, meaning that they're going to be working extra hard. It's the most difficult sort of contraction any muscle can do. But a lot of times with any functional movement, that's what you have to do. You have to have some sort of eccentric control when walking, for example. And the dynamic exercises like jumping, hopping, skipping, jogging, all sorts of things, lunges like that. All of that requires the body to trust um, the joint, to trust the muscles, and to know that the nervous system has been retrained in order to know how to fire what muscles where to, in order to maintain balance and to accept load, to use the calves, for example, to accept shock, to use the hands in order to catch themselves if they're doing like a clapping push-up or something like that. So all of this is the epitome or is the tip of the pyramid of fitness where the body has learned to tolerate load efficiently using the nerves and the musculoskeletal system. Poor, or sorry, poor. Proper recovery and nutrition are also important because it gives the cells the raw nutrients that they need in order to heal after a demanding exercise or to continue to rebuild after just a normal exercise, right? So what's happening during exercises is your muscles are being worn down, and if you don't provide them the proper nutrients, they cannot recover as fast, which means they're going to be sore longer. They're going to be working suboptimally. For example, if you have someone who is fasting right after being injured and they're in this later adaptation phase, one, they're not going to be able to tolerate as much volume of exercise or as much weight as they would be if they weren't fasting, and two, their recovery time is going to be significantly longer. They're going to be sore for a significant longer of time. They're going to have a harder time bouncing back to do any of the challenging functional mobility exercises, for example, because the cells just don't have the raw materials that they need in order to provide the output, the force in order to accomplish them. Um, like I said, physical therapy is key here. This is actually where I would argue it shines the most. I know before with the isometrics, I was talking about a good physical therapist would be able to do um, isometric contraction in order to drive those things we're talking about. But here is where physical therapy really shines because it allows a physical therapist to guide a progression of loading the tissues that doesn't just let it heal, but it helps it adapt to being stronger than even before. And it's about figuring out how to appropriately load that tissue in order to make it stronger that really makes different physical therapists shine. Some people are just naturally better at drawing that out of people, right? If you go and you see a physical therapist who specializes in basketball players, they're gonna be the best at drawing that out from physical or from basketball players. If you go and see a physical therapist who specializes in swimmers, they're just gonna be the best when it comes to swimmers. It's just how it is, because they're not interested in just helping or letting the tissue heal. They're gonna adapt it. They're gonna help the athlete adapt their exercise and their interventions to being better than they were before. So, all of that being said, right, adaptation, you also have to keep in mind that some systemic things play a role, such as sleep, stress, and nutrition and hydration, like we talked about. Poor sleep is going to be one of the things that can really impact negatively physical therapy and rehabilitation. Poor sleep, of course, slows tissue turnover, meaning there's a certain rate at which all the cells in your body die and are replenished. And poor sleep, especially chronic poor sleep, can really mess with that, which in turn increases inflammation in the body, right? So if you have this reduced ability to fix and heal and replace damaged cells and tissues across your entire body for a prolonged period of time, of course you're going to be more inflamed. It's a natural byproduct. There's more dead cells in your body waiting to be cleaned up, waiting to be replaced with new healthy cells. And so, of course, there's going to be more inflammation everywhere. Chronic stress is going to elevate several different hormones, which are going to blunt your body's ability to repair collagen and regulate immune function normally, which again is going to lead to issues with inflammation. It's going to lead to issues into recovery. So now this is at baseline. Keep in mind, this is just you existing without doing anything physically demanding. Now, if you add in any sort of physically demanding sport or activity or gym or marathon, fill in the blank, and then you add poor sleep, and then you add chronic stress, well, now you're having an even poorer rate of turnover, and it's even more necessary for your body to have this turnover because you're out here doing these very active things, and the body needs to heal, and you're taking away several of the critical things that it needs in order to make sure that it has time to heal. And finally, of course, just common sense, good nutrition, good hydration. This supports the fluid balance, which helps with inflammation early on, especially where if you had that really viscous fluid, proper electrolytes, proper nutrition, proper hydration helps reduce the viscosity just in general. It brings it down from how as bad as it could be down to this is inflammation, but it could be worse. It's just not as bad as it could be. And all things considered, you're doing a pretty good job drinking water and trying to drive that viscosity down. But at the end of the day, there's just a certain amount of viscosity that's going to be there. At least you're not dehydrated, increasing that viscosity and making it even worse on yourself, right? That's the idea when it comes to good nutrition and hydration. It's important. It's not the end all be all. It just makes everything a little bit better. But when all these things come together, when you're dealing with rehabilitation, the body is set up to work as best and optimally as it can to restore harmony and to help go from just healing and inflammation to adaptation as efficiently and quickly as possible. Now, this brings us to the final part of the podcast today, the clinical application, which is the timing of the interventions. Like I said earlier, physical therapists need to be able to recognize where people are in these different phases in order to help with timing of interventions, in order to help the tissue not only heal, but adapt. So in practice, inflammation is kind of like a wave. If you intervene too early with aggressive loading, you crash into the peak and you prolong the response. If you wait too long, the tissue becomes deconditioned and it loses a lot of its ability to effectively mechanical cell signal. It loses its ability to load mechanically, and it loses the ability to have effective neurological signaling. It has to relearn a task all over again. The art of physical therapy lies in matching the intervention to the phase, knowing when to support protection, when to promote motion, and when to challenge a tissue in order to encourage adaptation. One of the best examples of this, for example, one of the best examples of this is when you look at athletes. A lot of times they'll have some sort of crazy injury on the field or on the court, and then you'll see them within a few months back on the court shooting 3-pointers, or they'll be back in the gym getting ready to lift for football, or they'll be out on the pitch if you're looking for soccer, and they'll be practicing striking the ball and things. one of the reasons why that's happening, why a physical therapist or an athletic trainer or whoever is trying to encourage that, is because they don't want to lose the neurological connection, the mind muscle connection of how to accomplish a task, how to strike the ball, how to shoot the three-pointer, how to do this motion or that motion. As long as it's safe and as long as they're cleared to do it, that's why a physical therapist is looking at doing this. They want to keep that mechanical loading. They want to keep the body's ability to neurologically fire, to keep that component that makes the athlete elite, how they do the thing. And that all comes back to matching the intervention to the phase, knowing when to support, when to promote motion, and when to challenge with adaptation in order to preserve what makes that athlete or that person, that human being, good at what they do. So, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Again, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as it helps immensely with the channel. The next time you think about inflammation, remember it's not the problem, it's the beginning of the solution. It's not the end all be all, and it's not forever, hopefully. It's the beginning of the pathway to adaptation. Now, we will be looking at the final episode of inflammation next time, where everything's brought together, exploring how the mind, movement, and immune system all communicate, how they all integrate to regulate inflammation. And it's the bridge between science and self care, and it's the perfect way to end our series to come to the applicable, so what now, what do I do sort of thing. So until then, stay healthy, stay awesome. Well, until then, everybody stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will catch you all in the next episode.